bet in this scenario until it looks scary to not bet. And remember, you guys don't always get a bet in on these rivers, but for real, unless he has King X of spades, he doesn't have that many King X combos. He might have King 9 sometimes. He definitely has 10X of spades. He definitely has 9X combos. This is an easy thin value bet. I stream Wednesday through Saturday, cash games, Sunday tournaments, and then Tuesdays coaching with students. And then on Mondays, I don't stream. And tomorrow, I'm only going to do some sort of a half stream because I'm going to be watching the NBA Finals. And then after that, we're going to be right back to full-time next week and crushing. So we do get called by worse, guys. Remember, you're missing value because you're afraid that he always hits the overcard, or you see the overcard and then you always have to follow. I'm just going to limp this in. I don't really have a reason to tango with this dude. But pocket fours is just, it's just too good to fold. I'll just limp. I mean, I'm not trying to battle with this dude, but my hand's too good. I'll just give it to him on this board. He probably hit some pure snow. So we'll 3-bet here versus ISO. We get called in both spots, and then we flop really good. We're going to check here, because I'm going to have to check a lot of combinations. And when I flop top 2, I'd like to be able to check and let $9 guy shove any 2 cards, because he's trying to take a shot at the pot. Or, I can just check, and maybe this guy bets ace-jack, and I can get a check call in or a check raise sometimes. It's just a good spot when you have a value hand sometimes to check. And mainly I'm worried about this guy. I don't want to bet and have him fold. He only has $9. He's going to be incentivized to shove any pair, any equity. So I think that I get him to shove, and then I get this guy stuck. Maybe he isolates by shoving with his own ace, which tries to isolate me. Okay, so there's a number of ways this plays out. I bet, he calls with something, he calls or raises or whatever, or folds. He does whatever, and then I respond to that. If I check, he can bet, this guy can shove to isolate him, right, his bet, and then I can go, ha-ha, ace-jack's fucked, dummy. I can, if he takes like pocket queens or something here and shoves, I can get some thin shoves and some semi-bluffs here to isolate this stack. So if I check and he bets, this guy has an opportunity to shove and bluff, and it's good. I'm using relative position. I'm using relative position when I check. Okay? Sometimes you want to make a guy act before a guy. I know a guy that knows a guy. I make a guy act before a guy. You know what I'm saying? I make a guy act before a guy, see? All right, we got a ticket to the $17, finally. Get the fuck out of my face. Jesus Christ, man. Here. Abide, motherfucker. Abide. So when I check here, it's not just because I'm being tricky-trappy, or not just because it's a good balancing check. I'm also using relative position as I force this opponent to fast play hands to shut me out when I have queens or kings, thinking that I would always bet an ace because there's a flush draw on the board. So a narrow-minded bad reg or robotic player or somebody who can't think for themselves a lot of the time or just is not that experienced will never put me on a slow play and has to act before I get to say what happens. So this guy shoves, this guy has to act before me. So that's beautiful. Okay? And when this guy checks, this guy can still bluff any 2 cards and try to fold me off a king X or kings and queens and all that stuff that I represent more of when I check call here. So depending on his sizing and timing, I may check raise, I may check call. I mostly check call. So it's actually a pretty dope scenario to check, which also uses relative position and allows my opponents to play their widest range and have a bit of doubt about my hand in a spot where it looks like I would just be value betting all the time because it's a multi-way pot with 2 diamonds. I don't fear a diamond on the turn. Sometimes they have a flush there, and sometimes they don't. And sometimes they have a flush and I make a boat. Sometimes they cooler me, whatever. They could also have 1 diamond hands and then a bunch of other hands, and sometimes decide to bluff when they pick up a diamond or something. Maybe they check back king, queen, nut, no pair, and then they fucking, have a diamond and they bet the turn. So I get a lot of benefits from checking here. And in the scenario that we have, he checks, and then he checks. So we have the worst case scenario. Ace queen beats us. All flush draws that they decided to check get there. I have less flush draws in their range, which is also another reason why I'm not worried about a diamond, because most of the time they just have like 7s with a diamond, 8s with a diamond, 6s with a diamond, 5s, 4s, 3s with a diamond. They have that type of a hand. They have a king high they check back and made a king of diamonds on the turn. They don't often have ace x of diamonds that they check back or a flush draw because it's so valuable to bet in a bloated pot, especially when this guy's checked. So I discount diamonds. Ace queen and pocket queens are more of a concern for me. Either way, the pot's too big to fold to either of them. So the best play is just to go ahead and bet. I'm not going to let them check their pairs and flush combos. And I'm stacking off to ace-queen regardless. So he calls, and then he has the kings with the king of diamonds.